Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Tonight I want to share with you guys the Shakespeare Journey tag. So I was tagged in the Shakespeare Journey tag by Debs from Raina Reads Stuff. She's one of my favorite booktubers. I feel like we're friends. I'm so glad. So thank you for tagging me, Debs. This tag was created by the creators, the co-hosts, I guess, of Shakespeare. And those are Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and Nicole at A Day of Small Things. Everybody's linked down below, so go check out their stuff. Now, before I get into the questions, I want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I think what I'm doing is trying to apologize for my bluntness. I'm just going to be blunt. So you're going to hear in this video the perspective of someone who grew up in small rural farming communities in Eastern Oregon. I now live in a large but former small rural farming community in Northwest Arkansas that is now becoming very much a metropolis super fast. So I would say that we live in the city now, but it's only recent. Now, I was exposed to Shakespeare in school, but it was not really touted as something that everybody should read. It was more the idea that only the really smart, boring people read Shakespeare. And I don't know if that's just a US-centric thing or if that was just, you know, a small town farming community thing where I grew up. But there wasn't a lot of emphasis placed on, you know, just branching out culturally, we'll just put it that way. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just a limiting thing, right? And so the only times that I remember actually being exposed to Shakespeare in school was in the advanced placement literature and English classes that I did throughout, you know, middle school and high school. We had a little bit of exposure to Shakespeare and then some stuff that I've done in adulthood, okay? So my experience with Shakespeare is limited, but I still have a lot of things that I think I want to share and talk about. So let's get into these questions. The first question is, what was your first experience reading Shakespeare and what was it like? So first I'm going to tell you about my first experience with Shakespeare at all, then I'll talk about reading it. So my first introduction to Shakespeare, I was a little girl. There was a movie, it was made either in the really early 80s or even in the 70s, I'm not sure, but you probably know what I'm talking about. It's the Romeo and Juliet version. The girl has the really long straight hair, but I was really little, probably, I don't know, maybe like even 6 or 7. I was super small, and I just remember loving that movie version, but not understanding the story at all, right? I didn't get it at all. All I knew was there was a naked guy and a really pretty girl. But that's my earliest memory of Shakespeare. But the earliest thing that I read was in high school, my senior year. I had taken an elective class, and it was just like a theater class. I don't even know if it was specific on anything or if it was just theater. And I don't even think I finished the class, but I remember reading A Midsummer Night's Dream. And it was, we would go around the room, right? And everybody would read a little portion. And most of the people in this class had been in drama for a long time already, and they were very familiar with how to read it so it doesn't sound like you're just bouncing along on a poem, do, right? And so thankfully I was several people down, and so I could hear how they were reading it and the way that they, you know, it was a conversation and that they were reading it with feeling because they understood the words. So I was kind of able to pick up a little bit on what was going on. And so when it became, you know, my turn to read, I don't think that I did too badly. Of course, I don't remember, and who knows if they were all laughing at me. But I don't think I did too badly on my portion to read, just because I was trying to follow sort of what was going on as far as the way they were saying these things. But, you know, being a homeschooling mom, I have learned that there's a big difference between understanding the meaning of, you know, vocabulary words and being able to comprehend those words in a piece of writing. And my reading comprehension really didn't take off until my early 30s. I could, you know, tell you all the vocabulary words. I was a spelling whiz, and, you know, I kind of fudged my way through some stuff. But in my early 30s is when my comprehension really took off. And so I'll get into that whole thing a little bit more later. But anyway, I just remember feeling good about that reading of Midsummer Night's Dream that day. I only remember one day. I probably did drop that class. I probably was intimidated because I just felt like, okay, like this isn't probably as scary as everybody's making it out to be. But all that to say, I think that those drama kids, that theater club, was probably the ones who really got the most Shakespeare exposure in our school. Everybody else, like I said, if it was just kind of, thrown into our AP classes a little bit here and there. All right, question number 2. Has the reading of a Shakespeare play ever brought you to tears? What scene was it, and where were you when it happened? All right, so this wasn't a reading, but it was a performance, and it was Romeo and Juliet again. I took one of my daughters to see this probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, down in Fayetteville, about 45 minutes south of us, at the college. They had a ballet come in, a ballet company, and they put on a performance of Romeo and Juliet, but it was silent. So if you didn't know the story already, it was pretty difficult to follow. Thankfully, we did know the story and we were following okay. For the most part, I actually didn't love it. I thought it was just a little too out there and a little too interpretive-ish and just weird. But I do remember being moved several times by some of the scenes and shedding tears and just, being overwhelmed emotionally. But overall, it wasn't my cup of tea. Number 3, are there any people that have played a significant role in your Shakespeare journey? So I wouldn't say significant. There's a couple of people that I associate Shakespeare with. Like when I hear the word Shakespeare, I think of these people. And that would be this guy from high school and my brother. So the guy from high school was like everybody's crush, and he was in a couple of Shakespeare plays that I saw. One of them was As You Like It, and then I do think that he did A Midsummer Night's Dream. I just remember him being like everybody's, crush, and so he was a fantastic actor. He was, and he did really well in these parts. And so when I think of Shakespeare, I always think of that guy because he was kind of like the face of the theater club when I was in high school. And then I also think of my brother, and that is because after I graduated high school and I had already had our first daughter, my brother in his senior year of high school, their drama club put on A Midsummer Night's Dream, and he played Bottom. And so it was so fun to go and watch him and just see like him coming out of his shell and see him from the perspective of, how his friends saw him, and just being confident and doing this, hilarious character, doing it so well. And so I always think of, I think of my brother Joe also when I think of Shakespeare. But again, like I said, there wasn't like a teacher that really exposed me to Shakespeare or anything like that. It just wasn't a priority in the school that I was in. Number 4, do you have a favorite book or film about Shakespeare? I have not watched a lot of Shakespeare films. If I have, it was a long time ago, like 90s and earlier. So probably not as far as that goes. I do remember like the Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes Romeo and Juliet that my husband and I watched shortly after it came out. I think we were just barely married, and I was like, what is this? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too traditional, but some of these artistic licenses that people take with things kind of weird me out. But as far as my favorite Shakespeare story, I really do think it's A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's the one I'm most familiar with because it's the one that I've seen performed the most. It's the one that I've read the most. And it's just such a magical, fun story. It features names of characters from mythology, and so when I read about those, in other instances, these same names of characters, it just brings back kind of fun and happy memories. And I just think it's just a lighthearted, sweet story. I absolutely love it. You will be hearing more about that story in this video for sure. Number 5, which character in Shakespeare most resembles you, and in what ways? Now, I kind of had a little bit of a struggle to think through this one. There's a couple, but I think I am going to go with Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing. Now, the thing about Beatrice is she comes across as very in control and even controlling. She's a little bit harsh. She's a little bit cynical, but it's also funny, right? She just seems very much assertive and sure of herself. But she does show her vulnerable side, right? As soon as she finds out that someone is interested in her, it's like, oh. And so she does kind of have the vulnerabilities also that are sort of hovering underneath there. And I definitely see that in myself. I am a confident, assertive leader, in control, in charge sort of a person. But underneath there is quite a few things that, can really get me, soften me up, I guess you would say. And one of them is I don't know, the praise of others or the, someone likes me. I mean, just, likes, like they are interested and think that I'm, fun or cool or nice or funny or smart or whatever. Just, someone is impressed with me. That will just, I just get all, oh, really, So anyway, Beatrice just cracks me up. I actually saw that play put on in August. One of my sons, my youngest son, Liam, who was 14, he and some friends put on that play, but they did it in the setting of an 80s prom. It was absolutely hilarious. So much fun. All right, number 6. Which play would you most like to see performed in a theater and why? Now, this is going to sound kind of funny, but the one that I really want to see performed anywhere, stage or otherwise, is Two Gentlemen of Verona. And that is not, from what I understand, a super popular Shakespeare play. I feel like it's like a really early one, or maybe even the first one, but an early one anyway. And anyway, it doesn't get a lot of, accolade, but I have a special memory attached to it because probably about 14 or 15 years ago, our family lived up in Northwest Washington. We were about an hour north of Seattle and an hour south of the Canada border. And in this place called Skagit County, it's on the San Juan Islands up there. And so on one side you have islands and the ocean, on the other side you have beautiful, mountain timber. And I just loved living there. We didn't live there very long, but it was one of our best experiences that we've had as a family, just living there and enjoying all of the wonderful nature and the people. And it was great. If I could move back there, I would. But that summer that we were there, they did a medieval festival one week of the summer. And there's all these different things going on. And I don't even know how we found out about this play being performed. I think it was one of my husband's friends. But we went up into the woods a little bit, and they were going to be doing a play in the woods. And we had no idea, of anything. I'd never heard of this play before, Two Gentlemen of Verona. We didn't know any of the people performing. We had zero connections at all, but other than our friend just told us that this was happening. So we get in the woods up there, and we park off the side of the road in this little parking place that looks like it's like a trailhead parking place. And we all pile out. I have 7 kids at the time. 2 of them are under 2. All of them are under 12. And we walk down this meandering path into the woods. I think we just had a blanket and the baby's diaper bag. We take this meandering path into the woods, and it comes out into this clearing where there's an open grassy place for an audience to sit. And then there is the stage set up in a very primitive sort of way, I guess. No sound equipment or anything like that, no microphones or nothing like that. They had a few minstrels there basically playing the music to accompany the play, and the stage was very primitively set up, and it was so cool. And they did Two Gentlemen of Verona. And I could follow for, a little bit here and there, but I had all of these children that we were both trying to keep, quiet and still. And there was only about 100 people watching. And for the most part, everybody did great. The kids weren't obnoxious or anything, but it's hard to focus, when you're trying to also watch 7 children. So anyway, I would love to see that play performed again. I would love to take all my kids. I now have 9 children. I would love to take all of them and we all go back and see that play. I probably only have a couple of just the oldest kids that even remember that day, but it was such a special day for us. It's one of my favorite memories, and it's tied to Shakespeare. All right, number 7. What actor throughout history would you most like to have seen play Hamlet while in his prime? All right, it has to be an actor from the UK. And my 2 favorite actors from the UK are David Tennant and the late Alan Rickman. Either one of those I think would be fantastic. Those guys are great in everything they've ever done, from my perspective anyway. I think they are fantastic actors, such heart, such feeling, and just beautiful people, it seemed. Anyway, so Alan Rickman, David Tennant, those would be my choices. Number 8, deliver your favorite speech or soliloquy from a Shakespeare play. So I marked a few places here in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And so I'm just going to read these little portions to you because I just love the humor. I think Debs was the one that mentioned the Shakespearean insults, right? And there is a plethora of them, but I just want to read a few funny parts that I marked in this book as I was reading it. So the first one, this is from Act 1, Scene 2. It's kind of going back and forth between these guys. They're basically handing out parts for the play that these guys are going to put on. And it starts out with Quince. He says, Francis Flute, the bellows mender. Flute, here, Peter Quince. Quince, Flute, you must take Thisbe on you. Flute, what is Thisbe, a wandering knight? Quince, it is the lady that Pyramus must love. Flute, nay, faith, let me not play a woman. I have a beard coming. That was funny. I have a beard coming. All right, the next one is Act 2, Scene 1. And this is just kind of like a little delivery from Robin, which I thought was funny. It conjures up some funny mental pictures. So he says, I am that merry wanderer of the night. I jest to Oberon and make him smile when I a fat a bean-fed horse beguile, neighing in likeness of a filly foal. And sometime lurk I in a gossip's bowl in very likeness of a roasted crab. And when she drinks, against her lips I bob, and on her withered dewlap pour the ale. The wisest aunt, telling the saddest tale, sometime for 3-foot stool mistaketh me. Then I slip from her bum, down topples she, and Tailor, she cries, and falls into a cough. And then the whole choir hold their hips in loft, and waxen in their mirth, and knees and swear a merrier hour was never wasted there. I just think that's funny that, just that image of her falling off her stool, and then the whole choir holds their hips and laughs. All right, and then the last one is this exchange between Hermia and Helena. Hermia is so angry, and this is where we really get some great mental pictures, right? So this is Act 3, Scene 2, and Hermia says, Puppet? Why so? Aye, that way goes the game. Now I perceive that she hath made compare between our statures. She hath urged her height, and with her personage, her tall personage, and her height, forsooth she hath prevailed with him. And are you grown so high in his esteem, because I am so dwarfish and so low? How low am I, thou painted maypole? Speak, how low am I? I am not yet so low, but that my nails can reach into thine eyes. Oh, if I was only so quick with my comebacks. What dialogues I could have with people. All right, number 9. Do any of Shakespeare's plays intimidate you? If yes, what play and why? I don't think so. I don't think I'm intimidated by Shakespeare. Like I talked about earlier, in my early 30s, I kind of had this weird jump in reading comprehension, and I don't really know what it was. I think it was just a maturing, right? But I found that I could read and understand things that I didn't really read and understand before, or I would attempt to read them and it would just go over my head. It was the difference between knowing what the words meant and then being able to put them all together and comprehend what I'm reading at a regular pace, right? Without having to constantly stop and look things up and wonder and reread and be lost and daydream and all those sorts of things. So I think that that's kind of just what needs to happen with Shakespeare for me, right? Is I need to take the time to comprehend what I'm reading, take the time to read it out loud, take the time to imagine it happening, see the mental picture, and catch the humor. And we can do that when we take our time and not try to rush through things. If there's one thing that was very consistent on my report cards as a little girl, it was Sarah's a great student, but she rushes. Slow down. And I do it now, trying to get through my books as fast as I can so I can get on to the next one. And I don't take the time to really absorb and enjoy what I'm doing. So I think that as long as I will keep that in mind, slow down, enjoy, absorb, contemplate, think through, look things up, look up places, whatever, I will enjoy Shakespeare just as much as I've enjoyed anything else that I've read that has at first seemed very daunting. All right, number 10, what tips would you give to intimidated readers coming to Shakespeare for the first time? So everything I just said in question number 9 is good. I think that this is something that I always recommend to anybody who asks me how to get started with any kind of classics. And I say, find a good film version. It's not cheating. You're getting the story, right? Your goal is to know this story. So if you have to get it from a film version first so that you can go back and enjoy the written version, the original versions, then do that. find a kid's version and read that first if you have to, so that you get the idea of what's going on. If you have a basic idea of the story, then you're going to slowly be able to pick out the humor, the little funny side things. You're going to be able to picture this happening in your mind. And then slowly, little by little, the more you read it, the more you study it, the more you're going to really get it. Read with a dictionary, read with your phone out so that you can Google things, look up places, look up names, look up allusions. There's a lot of allusions in any kind of good literature, really, alluding to people from history, alluding to historical events. Sometimes they're alluding to contemporary events that we now see as historical, right? So take the time to look things up that you don't understand or that you wonder about. Trust your gut. Does this sound like this thing? I'm going to see if I have made a comparison here. Take the time to check out and research those comparisons that you think you might be making in your mind. You probably are. There's a whole lot of stuff in our heads that we kind of forget about, right? If we were to remember everything we ever learned, our heads would explode. So we learn things and we file them away. But as we read new things and we expose ourselves to new things, those things come to the forefront, right? And we have a little reminder. And then, so I take the time to research out those reminders, I think is a good tip also for reading Shakespeare. But I think, just like I said, like with anything, just take your time and do it because you want to. If you don't want to be doing it and you're just doing it because you think you're supposed to, well, you're not going to enjoy it at all. So, I have always said that Shakespeare isn't for everyone because I don't believe that it is, but I don't believe Jane Austen is either, and she's one of my favorites, right? So it's not for everybody, but if you're curious, then take some time and prepare yourself with a film or a conversation, go see something performed and get a feel for things. And once you open up the written part of it and just slowly go through, I think you'll find that it's actually not as difficult as you might be worried about. All right, number 11, which is your favorite Shakespeare play and why? It definitely is A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's the one that I've seen performed the most. But the thing is every time I've seen it performed, it's been by people that I care about, either friends or family, people that I care about, people that I know. And so it's just made it all the more endearing. I've seen it performed several times on stage. I've read it through a couple of times with friends and alone. It's just a special play to me. One of my daughters read this when she was younger, and so, we can have conversations about it. One time, the first time actually that I took one of my daughters to England, we were in Bath and we were walking past kind of like a charity shop early in the morning, and in the window was a gigantic donkey head that we knew had to have been used in the play at some point, that somebody had used to play bottom, and so that was a fun memory. It's just a magical, fun, sweet, funny story that I think is accessible. There I go, using that word again. It is accessible for most people. So that is definitely my favorite story right now. All right, so there you go. There is a limited perspective from an Eastern Oregon hillbilly girl. I hope that was interesting. I would love to hear about your Shakespeare experiences. If you want to do this tag, go ahead and do it. Consider yourself tagged. I will tag a couple of other people though. I hope everybody's having a great day. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.